Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Hardcore Gaming 101's Top 47,858 Games of All Time podcast, where we will objectively and definitively scientifically rank the games you nominate on Twitter. I'm Xerxes at GC9X on Twitter, and everyone knows when it comes to shows, podcasting ain't easy. My panelists tonight are...
I'm Satanga.
I'm Bobinator.
And I'm Jeff, the Electric Viking from the Giant Bomb Forums.
On this podcast, we have 3 rules. Rule uno. All rankings are final, official, and scientifically accurate. Rule due. You can nominate 3 games at a time on Twitter by hitting me up at GC9X or using hashtag 47KGames, although I don't really check that often. And rule numero tres. You can nominate games that have already been nominated, but please don't nominate games we've already ranked. And if you're curious which games have been ranked and nominated, you can check it out for yourself at bit.ly/47kgames. We're going to start with our first game of the show. It's OutRun 2006 Coast 2 Coast. That's a numeral 2. Mm-hmm. Even though this is not really a sequel to OutRun, is it? It's more like a
Actually, it is. It's the enhanced version of the actually numbered sequel to OutRun, OutRun 2.
Yes.
Which I believe was made on the Chihiro arcade board, Sega technology that was based off of the Xbox architecture, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. In fact, if you look up on just a list of Sega arcade games on Wikipedia, it just lists OutRun 2 as Xbox-based. I don't think it even specifies the board necessarily, though if you dug deeper, you'd probably spot that.
Well, this was nominated by 3 people, and I think they all nominated games, like versions of the game that were slightly different. I think one person nominated OutRun 2006, and somebody else nominated another version, which we'll talk about. They were at Eric Twice on Twitter, at Jegriva, I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that, but Jegrriva, and at Puplos Z. Puplos_Z. So thank you guys. I had not played this game very much until I was started preparing for this show, and I played it for quite a bit because it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So can we kind of demystify like all the different versions of this game? So you said there was one called OutRun 2.
Yes. So OutRun 2 is an arcade release, and it's 2002 or 2004, Satanga. Which one is it?
The arcade was at the very end of 2003, actually.
2003, okay. I'd believe that.
Yeah, right in December even. And then to Xbox it came in 2004, and only got a PlayStation 2 port in Japan in 2007, oddly enough.
Did that... It got a US release.
Actually did, I can confirm that.
Wait,
yeah.
The PlayStation 2 version?
The 2006 Coast to Coast got North American releases on the PS2 and PSP, I believe.
Yeah. My bad. I was only talking about the original OutRun 2. This is going to be confusing.
So this gets,
already.
So we're kind of talking about 2 separate games, I think, to be perfectly honest. But if we can condense them into one entity, which I think is... You get into... is Strider for the NES the same as Strider for the arcade?
Well, that's...
Doesn't 2006 have all the content from 2 anyway?
Yes.
So it's redundant.
Yeah, so 2006 has... it does have all the content from... I think it comes up as OutRun 2 SP. And then that's the one, if in Japan, that's the only version that came out for the PS2, I think. So, and it didn't have like the link up feature with the PSP to get like extra cars, so they just were unlocked from the beginning, I think. Which that's one thing you could do. If for some reason you had it, you're like, I love this game, I'm going to get it for my PS2 and my PSP, which I don't really understand why anyone would do that. But that's how you unlock a car or two that way, which I think is kind of crappy.
You have to earn your keep in these sorts of games.
It's not, I mean, look, a PSP is a great thing to have, and a PS2 is a must-have, in my opinion.
Yes.
But I don't like the idea of like penal. I didn't like it when they did the special stuff with Metroid and the GBA version. I just don't like that.
Yeah, it's understandable. That's companies being companies.
But
So you're
anyway,
saying that the PSP version of OutRun 2006 is basically an amiibo?
I mean, it functions as that. Its connectivity features is kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah, portable console connectivity. I believe the GameCube and the GBA did this too. It was basically the prototype to amiibos, now that I think about it.
Yeah, you get like one little extra thing
Skylanders, if you will.
But see, at least with the GBA and like with Metroid, so it's like what Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion. I mean, those are two different games. With OutRun 2006, it's the same game.
Yeah.
So why would you need it anyway?
That's regardless of the game itself, though.
Yes.
The game itself is really fantastic, and I'm not normally a fan of racing games because I think they're kind of BS to play. But
Okay, but here's the thing, Satanga. Yu Suzuki himself said that OutRun is actually a driving game, not a racing game.
That's right.
You never really compete against anyone. It's all about... It's basically a time trial more than anything.
Well,
it's you against yourself. That's right.
The original OutRun, yes. OutRun
This one
6, not exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it does have an original arcade mode that's, just basically original OutRun, but with cooler graphics.
So, okay, so let's kind of talk about what makes this game a little bit different from OutRun then. So starting with like the arcade version of the game, which is included in 2006, so I think we can talk about it. Mm-hmm. But it is basically, so I think OutRun didn't have branching paths, right?
Arcade OutRun?
No, it did, of course.
It did?
Yes.
Well, okay, so it just does that.
Yeah, no,
that was new. I guess I haven't played the original OutRun in a long time.
No, it's like
I was getting confused with Hang On, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Super Hang On
Super
was
scalar games basically just
straight
run together.
But OutRun the original had you had the same starting point, but at the end of every area you could go either left or right, and right generally led you to harder tracks, and there were a possibility of 5 end areas with their own ending graphic that you could activate. I think like one of them has your girlfriend steal the trophy instead of the racer, or like another one has a genie appear and you wish for like, I don't know, hunky or bud, or I forget exactly how that worked, but it's pretty goofy.
Yeah, so it functions more or less like the original OutRun then. I think it's every version of the game is just totally Ferrari branded cars, right? They're all Ferrari, not branded, but that's the make of all the cars.
Which is why this game never got re-released from digital distribution, sadly.
Right. This is back when Sega had some kind of deal with Ferrari, because didn't they also make like a Ferrari racing game for Dreamcast?
Were they factored into Sega Rally? I don't remember.
Same thing happened with Afterburner Climax, which is also a really good game that which got taken down off the digital distribution not long ago.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
They had some kind of deal with Lockheed Martin, but anyway, I have a question.
Yeah.
Has anyone actually finished a playthrough of this game, as in completed a playthrough? Because I haven't. I don't really know what you're supposed to be doing.
I got, a playthrough of what, the arcade mode?
Yeah, just like get to any of the endings.
I didn't. I played it for about 3 days, and I could get to the last stage of the fifth stage of any race, but I would always run out of time before I got to the end.
Yeah, same. I was like 3
It's really
stages away
kind
from
of challenging. Yeah.
I'm pretty poor at OutRun as much as I like it. Driving/racing games are not my forte. I don't know if it's because I've never owned an actual car, but I don't know. It just seems like if you bump badly or flip off the road once, you're pretty much doomed.
I don't know what it is you're actually supposed to be doing. Like, I know about drifting. I was doing that the entire time. I don't know if it was helping or not.
I don't know either.
I guess the broader goal of this game is to be accumulating, I forget what they're called, let's call them OutRun bucks.
Oh, yeah, I think they call them like miles or something like that.
Miles, yes.
I can never figure out what to do. I recall that you unlocked stuff with them, right? After like at a certain number of miles, you unlock things, yeah.
It's so like when you're cars and...
Right. That's another thing. That's kind of a good way of I mean, it was pretty standard by the time this game came out, but it's a way of, just making a pretty simple racing game, kind of teasing out some additional replay value and giving the player something to work towards. And so there's also like I don't want to say story mode or career mode exactly, because I'm pretty sure this guy doesn't have a job. He just drives cars with ladies.
How unrealistic.
And this is another one of these. This is another one of these racing games that involves like winning the affections of a lady friend with cars or vehicles of some kind, where your prowess handling the vehicle is like an analog to your like sexual ability or something. I'm not really sure how this works.
At least you're not given a trophy by a woman in a bikini with about 3 frames of animation.
Like the Cruising USA.
Yeah.
Let's see, buddy. I got some bikini girls who can hand out trophies, but there are only 3 frames of animation.
I think OutRun is... I'm going to make a bold claim. OutRun 2 is basically the last huzzah of Sega making arcade games in a big way. I think Afterburner Climax came out a couple of years... It came out in like 2006. And I mean, it's Afterburner, and Afterburner is great because it started as a Yu Suzuki Superscaler game, as far as I know. But you think about Sega, do you think about Sega as a arcade developer that got into consoles and got out? And if you think about it in the context of this is a badass, fast, good-looking, kind of breezy arcade game company, OutRun 2006 is kind of the final distillation, and I think a really good distillation of old Sega, of classic Sega. I think a Sega that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of their swan song, except they stayed around for another decade for some reason.
Yeah, still here.
Hey, they're not making pachinko machines as far as
I
I
think
know,
the
exclusively.
only thing similar to OutRun really was the Sonic and Sega racing games, both of which are really good.
Yeah.
Also feature OutRun content, so that's worth checking out.
Those are more kart racers, though, right?
I'd say they have similar physics, especially when it comes to drifting.
Yeah, OutRun's not a simulation racing game by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
I was going to say they share the same engine, but I could be wrong on that. They feel similar in physics, at least.
I think we got to cover the mechanics of it really fast.
Yeah.
One thing is I think standard to most arcade racers. It's like a checkpoint based racing system where you get like Ridge Racer or something. Except Ridge Racer goes in laps, and this is just like a straight path of destruction through like populated areas. And so you have a timer, and it starts out with like 90 seconds or something like that, or I don't even know if they're exactly seconds. They're just 90 cron units or what.
Sure.
And if once you get to, you finish a track, and then you get an additional 60 seconds or something probably. And so the problem with the game, and not problem with the game, but the challenge of the game is that you can keep going. It's not like you can run out of. I don't think there's too many ways to lose a race other than just running out of time. You can get in, I think, as many wrecks as you want to.
It's actually very difficult to act. There's definitely going to be a point where you lose more time than you get, and that's why it's so difficult to actually finish a playthrough. And
you start building a deficit, like your mistakes are building like a deficit of time that will catch up with you eventually. And that's what usually happens to me is I'll be going along great, and then I'll get in like one wreck, and that pretty much ruins you, I think. Maybe there's some trick to driving that I'm not getting, but I'm pretty good at not like avoiding the walls and the other cars. But anyway, so that's nothing new. Then the other thing the game adds is, and sometimes it's called heart attack mode, I think. And that is the one where your paramour in the passenger seat will issue bizarre challenges to you during the race. So it's just like a normal race, except you also get these weird challenges. So she'll say like, hit all the cars. So you have to hit all the cars that are in your way. And if you fill up the hardometer, you get points. And it doesn't really help. I don't think it adds any time to your timer, which would be more useful. But so they're like, and it gets weirder and weirder. So there's like avoid the semi trucks. Don't crash, which is probably the easiest one. The one I hated was like cross the lines, and so there's like a bunch of like weird floating tripwire things, and you got to go through them. And there's like avoid the UFOs where they shine. You got to avoid the UFO spotlights and stuff like that. And that's a pretty cool aspect of the game. And then there's also I can't remember what they call it. It's not career mode, but you know what I mean. In that there's also it's also split up in like a progression thing where this guy who looks like Ernest Borgnine gives you different kind of race challenges, and so like a couple will be like just complete the race in good time, and another one will be win the race, and it'll give you some people to beat. Another one will be, I think that's usually what they are so far. And then you've got to average out on all those races at, they give you a rank at the end of the race, from, I guess, F to triple A, or is there an S rank? I never got an S rank. But if you average out to A's on all of them, then you get to go to the next set of challenges where it gets a little bit harder. But you're always racing on, I think, basically the same tracks, as far as I can tell. But those are the things that make the game kind of different than its predecessors.
We haven't said that it's actually really good as a racing game. I mean, it controls well. It goes really fast, which is obviously
it does look
important.
really good, yeah.
It is definitely a very fun game to play, even as difficult as it is. So I'd say
if you want to get into arcade racers, I'd say this is a good starting point.
Yeah, it's notable that this one's actually called OutRun 2 because there were actually at least 2 more OutRun arcade games between this and the original OutRun. One was, I believe, Outrunners, and then there was Turbo OutRun, something of the sort.
Mm.
And then a bunch of European exclusive games we best not discuss.
And Battle OutRun, these console exclusives that really aren't all that
What about
great.
the one they play in Encino Man? Rad Machine?
I never saw Encino
OutRun
Man
2049?
There's an OutRun 2019.
Yeah. 2019, yeah.
Wow.
That sounded so far in the future.
Sure, the distant future of 2019.
Now it's like you're hearing like, oh, the next Star Wars movie is coming out in 2019 or something.
Sure.
I guess we should probably rank it.
Also, guys, the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, Magical Sound Shower
so
wins everything. That's right.
It's got that's the nice thing is it's got different versions of the.
Yeah, it has all the classic tracks from the original OutRun and several new ones.
In the
kind of like
the
Life.
Genesis tracks too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of partial Life was a bore, but nothing beats Magical Sound Shower for all ages, as far as I'm concerned.
Few things
do. Exactly, man.
I mean, I'm thinking more like the Snatcher range. Like it's kind of like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Snatcher's in a similar. It's like it's a kind of like a paragon of a pretty small genre. Although no, I guess visual novels is a huge genre, right?
Sure. Yeah, if the genre you're thinking about is English Sega CD adventure games, then sure.
Yeah. It just depends on how you look at that one, but
yeah.
I mean, it's not. It's really not supposed to be ranking these based on what kind of game it is. It's more.
Oh, yeah, sure. You're saying above or below Snatcher, though?
It doesn't really make a difference to me. I mean, it's kind of like
okay,
Snatcher.
well, let me put it this way then. Do you want it above or below G.I. Joe?
I think G.I. Joe is a cooler game.
Whoa.
I know you're fond of G.I. Joe.
Let's not keep down-ranking OutRun here. I think
okay, so G.I. Joe. All right. So we didn't really get to talk a lot about G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it's from the olden times.
It's from ye old days of Game Club 1990X episode 35.
Back when Dirt was young.
But it's a KID game, and I like those guys a lot.
Yeah, I mean it's a kind of Contra S thing, but it also has a weird sort of. The base stages are really creative, where you go play like a regular stage, and then it goes to a base stage.
They're Metroid-esque, kind of.
In the base stages, you're trying to find all the like structural weakness points, and you plant plastic explosives on them, and then you finished it when you've got them all planted. But then you have to fight a boss for some reason before the place explodes.
So it's like Crackdown.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to get around to that one. The Sega Crackdown, not the Xbox one.
It's got all kind of standard Contra-esque weapons, except you can also switch between different characters. And the characters are all the G.I. Joe toys.
Yeah, it's
one
three.
Of which is Captain Gridiron, who I guess is the G.I. Joe specialist of American football.
He's the least known of them, but he's like the best character, too.
So we're getting to the point where the OutRun is at the risk of winding up in the bottom half of this list.
No, it's not.
And we are. It's like Donkey Kong Country 3 is the midline, and I will not see it go below Donkey Kong Country 3.
I would put it above. I would put it above Tapper too. That's what.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not really. I mean, I think it's in the G.I. Joe range. I'm not. Yeah. I don't really. It's kind of depends on how the votes go down here.
Yeah, I would allow it to go about there.
Okay, so above or below G.I. Joe?
Let's say above.
I say below. We
I'm
got
I don't think I've had much chance to weigh in here. Honestly, I would have still placed this one above Snatcher just because it has.
So that's 3 aboves. All right.
I would also put it above Snatcher.
I mean, Snatcher is a great experience, but it doesn't have nearly as much possible replay value, which I guess is a really stupid basis of comparison, visual novels as it were, but I'm just going to give the extra edge to OutRun 2 because it does have the original OutRun in it as well, fully emulatable and playable, so, it's got more game to it. It's got a lot of nostalgia points.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so that's 2 votes for above Snatcher. What do you think, Bob and Nader?
I mean,
I'll allow that.
Okay, so it's above Snatcher.
I'm not going to, not to push it too much, but a good friend of mine, hey Dyer51, how's it going? A shout out. Probably murder me if I didn't make the case to put it above Street Fighter 3 Third Strike as well, but I don't know. I might be kind of pilloried here, so I'm going to blame you guys for that.
I think OutRun's pretty damn good, but even I don't even really like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike that much.
Me neither.
I don't like Street Fighter that much.
Third Strike.
I'm not crazy.
Third Strike.
Want those Street Fighter 3 people to come after me and fucking knife me.
It is a rather rabid fan base. I'll admit all the complaints I heard when Street Fighter 4 came out. Oh my god, it still makes me. Anyway, between Street Fighter 3, Third Strike, and Snatcher, can we just settle on that? Right. Let's go with that.
So I
think this has gone on long enough.
All right. Okay, so our next game for this show is WWF No Mercy for the Nintendo 64. It was nominated by @Ewzy, EWWZY on Twitter. Thank you, @Ewzy. So this game is kind of is it the last of the Aki pro wrestling?
Well, if it's not the last, it's certainly the best in any case.
It is the last one that features a licensed actual wrestling federation in it in real life.
The next one, it's like the the generic.
Well, they went on to make the the Muscle Pro, the Ultimate Muscle and Galactic Wrestling games, and then
so that's a different license then. Okay.
And the Def Jam fighting games.
I was just imagining like one of those like NES style like fake wrestling leagues, like the Earth Championship Wrestling Heroes League.
They also went on to make a Style Savvy game, and two of them. Oh, geez. What a friggin' weird portfolio this company has. Stroke kind of had. Okay, so in North America, this company released 5 wrestling games, 4 of them for the N64. Their first release was actually a WCW vs. the World was the title of it. It was actually a PlayStation 1 game, early 97. Late 97, you got WCW vs. NWO World Tour, which featured the WCW and the NWO, which was kind of right before Starrcade 97 that year. So kind of peak WCW.
Which were basically like competitor league type things to basically the WWF, right?
Well, the WCW was an actual separate league. This all vaguely matters, and it kind of had this... so you saw like Hulk Hogan is like dressed up in black and white with a big bandana that said Hollywood on it for like 5 years, and that's that shit. They released another WCW branded game. Then they got the WWF license sometime early 1999 and released 2 WWF branded games, which was the larger, more successful, and now basically token wrestling fed in the United States. They're big enough to be publicly traded, so they're kind of big. No Mercy is the second one. And the reason it sticks out to a lot of wrestling fans is it's basically was released right at the peak of popularity of wrestling in North America. It came out in November 2000. About 6 months after that, the single, probably the most highly regarded wrestling show in North American history happened, which was WrestleMania 17 or X7. And WWF No Mercy basically features a snapshot of the roster and of wrestling as it existed right at basically this weird kind of perfect crystalline peak to a lot of people. We could talk a lot about the Attitude Era and why it's kind of, I think, this gilded, held up thing that doesn't look so good when you actually examine it.
Really? I've heard I've heard a lot of complaints about the Attitude Era in retrospect. Because
I can't hear anything because we're so far up our own butthole.
Hey, it's really familiar. The Attitude Era is where everything gets like super gritty all the time, right? Because like Hulk Hogan's evil now.
Oh my God!
Thank you, Diana Goodman.
What is going on?
So this ties into No Mercy because this game features basically everything you could, a cornucopia of styles of wrestling and of people who are wrestling. You've got, The Rock. Maybe you have heard of him. And the Stone Cold Steve Austin, who are just these big, Hollywood blown out guys. If you're into wrestling as a scientific thing or whatever, you have Kurt Angle, who's an Olympian, Chris Benoit. Here's kind of where things fall apart. All of these games are terrible representations of wrestling. Just terrible.
Why is that?
So you think about good wrestling. You think about an actual fight.
Which is not necessarily what you're talking about. You're talking about good performing, right? Because they're not good fake punching and fake kicking and fake throwing and
good theatrical combat. Right. Let's say there's a flow to it. The guys
where you punch somebody and you also stomp your foot at the same time.
Yes, a good working punch. Yeah. There's a flow. Things are moving neatly. There's a good back and forth. The movement in all of these games is fairly stiff. So, they were N64 games that relied on the D-pad for movement as opposed to the analog sticks. So those were kind of weird in and of themselves. The moves that you had, the movesets were relatively limited. Mechanically, you had basically you build something akin to a special meter or a rage meter in, let's say, a Street Fighter.
The thing with these games I never understood is you don't really have traditional health. It's more like
you kind of lose stamina or something, right?
Yeah, but that stamina can be regained through basically not getting your ass beat. You have
it's more like a performance meter, right?
Well, right, because it's just real pro wrestling where it's if you suddenly get psyched up by the audience or something, then you can get all your power back and win the day and.
Yeah, you can do taunts, basically. Well, it's not basically. You have taunts that you conduct, which will boost your little meter.
So there's a grappling mechanic to it?
Yes,
right?
so there's striking, there's grappling, and once you're in a grapple mode, you've got weak and strong grapple moves that you can pull off.
I guess that this series, its main competitor among enthusiasts would be the Fire Pro series?
Sure. Well, but the thing is, those games exist still. Is kind of the thing.
Well, but I'm saying it's in terms of enthusiasts who love classic wrestling games.
Sure.
The Fire Pro series is the other one that I hear gets a lot of respect. I've actually I've collected I think all the PC Engine Fire Pro. Okay. I don't.
No shit.
Yeah. I like pro wrestling games. I hate pro wrestling. I'm interested to hear how the game I like is nothing like real wrestling.
I'm not too familiar with most big wrestling games, but I will say that Fire Pro Wrestling Returns, one of the later installments, which actually came to the USA somehow for the PS2, that one's really fantastic. I might have been spoiled on that game because I'll say that WWF No Mercy, I just couldn't really get into how it played. I know these games are celebrated for how they're styled, but when it comes down to their core gameplay, I just thought it was a little too clunky, I'm going to be honest. And this is supposed to be the best one, too. So.
These games are completely impenetrable if you're not a wrestling fan. That's a problem.
I don't know about that, because I like them, and I am the anti-wrestling fan. So
I got out. I got back into wrestling a couple years ago. I'm basically back out.
because of Roman Reigns.
I'm aware of what's going on in the wrestling world, and that's fine. The Fire Pro games have always just seemed kind of impenetrable to me. Whereas No Mercy, while yes, it has some things going on, and there are things that you can do to be better at playing No Mercy. It is like, but not really like, a fighting game. I would agree. I think it's and this doesn't apply to WWF No Mercy necessarily. It applies to every one of these games. It's a little clunky. I just don't think it's very good at. To quote a guy in the wrestling industry, the one thing it's supposed to be good at, it's no good for. Which is show wrestling.
But I mean, they do wrestling moves.
They do, and the animations are pretty. That's the other thing. If you look at WCW versus NWO World Tour, which came out 3 years before this, and look at No Mercy, I'd say 75% of the animations are probably recycled, just iteration to iteration, like untouched. The things that they would add is Mankind will do the mandible claw on a guy, or the Undertaker does a power bomb now, so make that different power bomb.
Oh, so they add signature moves or something.
Yeah, but I mean that's about we put a new arena model. It's like great. That's like a bunch of 2D texture art.
Well, I mean the other thing we do have to mention here is that there's also versions like the Japanese versions of these games are different because they're not based on American wrestling promotions. They're based on Japanese wrestling promotions, but they feature American wrestlers. Or like AirSats American wrestlers, right?
So Virtual Pro Wrestling came out a little bit after the WCW game, and that has WCW and NWO guys. Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 actually is mostly an All Japan game, so it has freaking Shohei Baba and Vader in it.
Now, for a while, like the American ones didn't have blood, right?
So No Mercy actually is kind of strange. So the original version of that game did have blood. There was some sort of glitch you could pull, not glitch, but it's like basically the game would freak out after you played it too long. I think it was I'm not quite sure what it was. So there was let's call it a 1.1 version that was released, and they nixed the blood in it.
Why on earth would they do that?
Actually, at that point, they weren't really interested in nixing blood from wrestling, but they sure as hell are now.
Well, I mean,
the Crimson Mask.
Yeah, they used to like. Well, there were like some wrestlers who they would conceal razor blades on their person, and then they could like cut their own skin to make it look like they were getting like the crap knocked out of them.
Yeah,
to make it more exciting, you'd have like a blood all over their face, and that's the kind of bleeding you would see, like where they're really just like cutting right above their eyebrow or something like that. But they're trying to make it look really nasty and cool. But the other thing that I think these games are really popular for is the create a wrestler mode. So you can like create your own wrestler and like assign all their moves, and it gets really detailed. Where if you want to do it like you can spend a long time doing this almost.
And it's bouncing off the ropes, you could do this strike, but if you hold down this button, you do this strike instead. Like when you've got someone in the corner, you can do a front suplex, or you do a friggin', yes, you can really, really drill down. It's not quite the level that the Fire Pro games will let you drill down, as I understand, but the games I've played more than WWF No Mercy in my life are probably Civ 4, Civ 5, and Morrowind. That's really about it. I've probably played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of WWF No Mercy growing up.
So you would say it is the best of the Aki wrestling games then?
I can't speak for Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, which as I look at it, I kind of want to play it.
Let me just ask this about I understand maybe that the Aki wrestling games were sort of more you had to be there to get into them.
Well, you also have to play with other people to really get it.
Like with most fighting games,
No Mercy actually has really good single player shit, though. I found I spent most of my time playing the single player mode of that, and like WWF No Mercy specifically has like a really really layered like campaign mode, so it'll start you off in like a battle royal, and depending on how you place in it, it's a Royal Rumble. You either go down a like career path where you're like, oh, you're chasing The Rock for a championship, or oh, you're looking for a mid card title, or oh, we're going to pair you up as a tag team fighter. It does some really clever stuff, and it'll like put you in these like kind of different scenarios where it's like, oh, like win this singles match with this condition, or oh, we're going to beat you down and it's a 2-on-1 match, and you have to beat both of these real mean dudes.
So these games, like the conceit, they maintain the what's the word? wrestling term, kayfabe, right? The fakeness of it. They maintain the illusion of it, even though everybody who's a fan of the game, unless they're 6 years old, knows that wrestling is fake.
Yes, that is true.
And I will say this about pro wrestling: I like the terminology a lot more than the actual thing. There's so many great words that come out of it.
So, Xerxes, I was actually going to conceive a test sentence just to see if it would cheese you off. If that jobber didn't totally sell the main eventers Enzigiri, this booking would have been a total Haas fest.
Well, you had me up until Haas fist.
I just looked that one up myself.
That sounds fake. I think you just made that.
No. I'm looking this up on Wikipedia. A Haas is basically a big McLarge huge. A bulky wrestler is just there to be big, but doesn't really do much else.
Monster heel, if you will.
The big show for the past several years, basically. I hate to say.
Oh my! This is.
Yes, I did it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I just feel this thing spiraling out of control.
That was my purpose.
Things I had to feel superior about. Like I made a show where I just rank every video game that strangers name, and that is like that already puts me in like the bottom rung of society. But
I will say
there's I'm above the pro wrestling people. At least.
I will say there is one thing of No Mercy and wrestling games in general I really like.
Yeah.
Character creators.
Yeah.
It is fun. My character of choice is Pink Belly Pete Saladin.
Personally,
Pink Belly Pete.
Did you make that one up?
I made Pink Belly Pete up, yeah.
Darn it.
I'd say my litmus test for good character creator in a wrestling game is how easily you can make Roger Klotz from Doug. I'd prefer to be a bit more trendy, Dan Backslide from the Looney Tunes cartoon The Dover Boys.
Wow, that's the second Dover Boys reference I've seen.
Yeah, that's become really explosively popular on Twitter lately. I mean, I love that cartoon, but I don't know how the hell that happened.
Echo. Oh, we're back in our own ass.
No one will ever know.
I just took a wrong turn and just further up my own.
This is the try to piss off Xerxes hour that we've inadvertently stumbled into.
Okay, so I don't know. I like this game, but I'm starting to hate it. Just listening to people.
Oh, okay. Maybe
wait.
Maybe we should rank it before things become any more impartial.
Well, I do want to say one thing that I like about it, which is that it's weirdly unresponsive, like soupy, kludgy controls are what kind of sell it for me, because it is exactly what it feels like to watch pro wrestling, where you're watching people move and behave in ways that no human being has ever moved and behaved in intentionally. Or naturally before. It's the most unnatural looking thing, and that's exactly what the game gives you. Is like you're just like kind of. It's kind of like the Octodad of wrestling games. And
I'm gonna go ahead and short this whole conversation about ranking this game too. You should look up the menu music for WWF No Mercy, because just based on that, if we were to rank it, this sure as hell is worse than Donkey Kong Country 3, and I maintain it's probably the best wrestling game North America has gotten to date, but it does not belong in the top half of the current list.
I don't know, man. Just put it wherever.
Let me.
Thank you.
Okay, I can really appreciate this game's craft and how genuine it is to the era.
I gotta say, like, it's funny that me and Satenga are kind of going to be the game's biggest defenders after the game, like, who've probably played it the least, maybe.
Let me put it this way: my favorite wrestling game is actually Capcom's Saturday Night Slam Masters, and even then, that one's almost more of a fighting game, and its sequel was an actual fighting game, so maybe realistic wrestlers just don't jive with me. I don't think I'm really fit to rank this.
I don't know, again, realistic wrestling, pro wrestling games is there's so much to unpack there, but I don't know. Let me say this. It's the best version of a kind of game that doesn't really get made anymore and probably will never get made again. And it is sort of, the Aki games in particular, are just kind of their own thing. They're such a weird anomaly. In,
they are unto themselves.
The games have a lot of heart, I guess I would say. Yeah. And No Mercy, even though, because it is the most tied, like the only thing I don't like about it is it's so tied to its era license. Yeah, that I don't really. It's hard for me to. The game I fell in love with was probably the first of their N64 wrestling games, whatever the other
They had all these strange, like, East Asian wrestlers who, like, are based, like, they're named, they're all just basically have the serial numbers filed off of them, but it's like, who's this guy? He wears a
they're like
mask.
The Fire Pro
There's
type
a certain wrestling game I had when I was really young, and I forget the name of it. I think it's by THQ, and what I remember is that you had a lot of weird secret characters, like, there was, like, a giant ant and a guy made of glass, and...
So,
wow,
yeah,
that sounds awesome. Whatever.
The thing about, like, the best wrestling game ever, by the way, would be Hybrid Heaven. But
I knew you were going to bring that up, you bastard.
Yeah.
You're right, too, by the way.
I'd say Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee is not a great game, but it also feels a lot like wrestling.
King of the Monsters is pretty fun, even if
King of the Monsters is a straight-up wrestling game.
Yeah,
that's Superstars for the arcade. It was
what
late
about
80s.
WWF WrestleMania Arcade? I actually kind of dig that game, as dumb as it is.
So WWF No Mercy, we're saying...
Look, I think it's in like the Blitz territory.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was thinking. I feel like it is like NFL.
Here's the thing: Blitz is an action. Blitz, as you know, dumb as it is, represents an actual sport. Wrestling's fake, so put it below Blitz.
It's like, that's weird, isn't it? It's
we're going to have
a
people
version of a real thing, and this is more like
we're going to have some people complaining about calling it fake because there is a lot apparently real goes into it.
Hey,
but
the smarkiest smark on this damn show. That's fake.
Is that a portmanteau of smart mark?
Smart Mark, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the fact that I know this is such. That just tells you how much this insane subculture has permeated the internet.
Yeah, nerding specifically.
It's
look,
like
I was thinking I was going to defend this game a lot more, but I can't, and I love it.
I love it too. I don't know exactly what to even say about it that hasn't already been said. Yeah, I mean, I'd put it...
Like, I mean, you look at this list that we actually have, and it's like everything from about... Even DKC3 up is like mechanically sound, like plays good, and is like fun to actually just be holding a controller and playing.
But is this game
I love
not
WWF
mechanically sound, or is it just it doesn't respond the way you want to? I think the game is... They could have made it as responsive as any fighting game, and I don't think that would have made it better. I think it would have made it worse. I think the game kind of works because you're never quite sure what your guy's going to do. It's like you're partly controlling it, but you're also just partly a spectator to just like, because you don't really know what's going to happen. And there's a lot of like screaming at your TV kind of thing that's supposed to be fun about it. I mean, there was fun about it to me, and I don't know. I guess I'm so divorced from its in like its actual context that it's hard for me to even like. I just love how weird it is. But then again, if it were my choice, I would choose one of the earlier ones that has a lot more of the fake wrestlers, you know?
Yeah, I think it'll be weird because I might wind up putting one of the WCW games above No Mercy, which feels really weird, but as I'm sitting here saying this live, I'm kind of there.
The game, I mean, yeah. So above or below NFL Blitz? I kind of want to put it above. I like NFL Blitz, but I don't feel like... I would never say you've got to see this to anybody like NFL Blitz. Check this, but I would say that about the Aki wrestling games. I would say like you really got to see like especially.
Well, I mean,
on the Nintendo 64.
I don't.
Yeah, is really weird too. Like
this just might be my bias showing, but I wouldn't say it's better than NFL Blitz. Like NFL Blitz is a game you just get into pretty easily, and you got to put in a lot more work to really enjoy No Mercy. I'd say.
You do? I feel like it's pretty pick up and play. You just got to redefine your idea of what play means.
Here's my knock, Bobinator. When you say Blitz, are you thinking Blitz or are you thinking Blitz 99, which is a better version of Blitz?
This is true.
Because if we're just talking about NFL Blitz, like original, no way. Now, if you want to talk about Blitz 99, oh, sure, Blitz 99, easy, no question. I'm all the way with you. But I can't.
So that's a good point. Satinga, tiebreaker. Not tiebreaker, tie maker, potentially.
Not really being big on either game. I'm just going to be pushover and defer to the majority vote here. I'm sorry, Bob. Or you can just count me as a non-vote. I'm going to vote for a third party.
I abstain.
Okay, hang on. look, I'm not the biggest pro wrestling fan, but
right,
I'm even less a fan of football, so I'm going to put No Mercy above.
All right, that's as scientific a reason as I can imagine.
One more thing.
So there it is. So right now it goes above NFL Blitz and below Marvel Land, a game that I really liked when we ranked it like 2 years ago. And I can't remember anything about it.
It's by Namco, I can tell you that.
All I know is that we were correct when we made the decision. So that's all I have to go on.
All right. One more.
So there it is.
One more thing, though. The WWE circling the drains, so you'll see me at Lucha Underground. That's all.
Diggity dog. Breaking. Diggity dog. Breaking. Diggity dog.
The next game is another W game, huh? It's Wall Street Kid for the NES, nominated by it's Crush Gals. Love that name.
Good name.
Good name. Wall Street Kid. It really. I'll say this: it delivers on its promise. It is about a Wall Street kid. Okay. So it's actually the localized version of the second game in a Japanese series. I think they're just called like the Money Game or something like that.
Yeah,
let's play money making game. So it is basically, I would say it's like Harvest Moon if it were made by Gordon Gekko. It's about like, instead, in Harvest Moon, okay, you the games always begin like, you inherited this farm from your great uncle Festoon, and I didn't come up with that name. Somebody else. That's not a real name.
You should have just said Uncle Fester.
Yeah, you
bunked up.
You inherited this. I like the word festoon though. Festooned with something. So you inherit this farm from Abe Vigoda, and you get all this. And then it's like the idea is like you're supposed to prove yourself that you got like 1 year to like to get your stuff together and turn a profit and do all this stuff with the farm.
Because you have your family name to uphold, and you can't just inherit it like a layabout.
So in Wall Street Kid, it's that you get your uncle dies, and for some reason you are the relative he chooses to bequeath his vast fortune to, but he will not give it to you, or the will states that you do not get to keep it unless you can turn $500,000 into $1 million in like 4 months. And on top of by just by playing the stock market. And you've also got to, I think it's required, right? You've got to marry your girlfriend. You probably knocked her up, and buy a boat and buy a nice house or apartment, and buy the family castle, which was owned by somebody else. Maybe it's a Flintheart Glomgold situation. I'm not sure. It's going to go up on auction at the end of July, and so you have to have enough money to get it. And if you do all those things, you win the game. And yeah.
There's something funny about the intro that friend of the show, Wild Weasel, noted. When the lawyer talks about how your uncle died, your character is just standing there grinning like an idiot even after...
Well, he just inherited like $1 billion. It's like, that's so sad.
Well,
I'm just smiling because it's the nervous smile.
I guess he has no
and these
regard.
dollar signs in my pupils are nervous dollar signs.
I guess because the kid is all about Wall Street, he has no regard for human life. So
it's implied that you know nothing about trading, though, right? Because there's like a guy you can talk to. It's like, I'm going to teach you about playing the stock market.
Yeah, the premise is like, I guess, we just have to take it for
much
what
like
it is.
It's interesting because we played Jones in the Fast Lane for the last one, and this is kind of like another
what the hell is
solitary quest for stuff where it's like you've been locked in a room and you've got to use your computer to trade stocks and make money. And at first, it's really hard to make money because you've got a bunch of fake companies that you can invest in, and I guess the manual must have told you which ones are like blue chips and which ones are growth stocks and which ones are whatever. It's like
you can torture me all you want with financial talk, because that's like pro wrestling talk to me.
Yeah, it requires just as much insider knowledge as pro wrestling does to enjoy, except you win real dollars if you know what you're doing.
The difference is this kind of insider knowledge will get you in jail if you're not careful.
Well,
so
yeah,
you should probably say that about wrestling,
there is
too.
Borderline insider trading built into the game, I should know.
Yeah, actually.
But, it's not, you don't know if it's insider trading, because she could just be getting this information from her like Bloomberg terminal or something.
Okay, but this she in question is, what is her name?
Priscilla?
Priscilla is this person who you just call and like will say like, hey, man, I got
a hot tip for you.
For $1,000, I will tell you what is going to happen.
No, Priscilla was the name of your girlfriend.
Priscilla's girlfriend.
Yeah, presumably. Yeah, Priscilla.
Anne? It's Anne.
Anna?
They really.
Yeah, they have like all these characters with all these
disembodied woman with very little agency.
Yeah, let's go with that.
You call.
She's another person who's apparently lives in an office. So yeah, that's true. It can't be public information because you have to pay her $1,000 to get it, and it's not, in my experience, that useful to really ask her, because basically you just want to find out in case like the stock you've put all your money into is going to tank really soon. So it's like, oh, the CEO got the plague or something, you know. So you gotta invest your money, and the game is really heavy on. It's not, because you've got to do everything in 4 months. So in real life, although if you have a stockbroker, they'll probably like be trading stuff all the time because they get fees and stuff every time they do that. And if they do it too much, it's something called churning, and you can be sued by the SEC. But anyway, what you're doing, you don't have a stockbroker in this game, but you have to trade pretty much. You're buying and selling stuff every day. Which in real life is not a great way to make money on the stock market. Like it's conclusively proven that
there's a whole
anybody who works for you and does this and is telling you to trade stuff constantly is ripping you off.
Yeah, there's a whole day trader industry that people are trying to train people to go in and do this.
Right. The real people who make money on the stock market are actually people who have super fast computers that will trade and buy and sell stocks several times within hundredths of a second.
Yeah, algorithmically.
Which accomplishes absolutely nothing except making those people money. Like the stock market is supposed to be a way of investing your money, getting a return, and also facilitating commerce and encouraging like companies to, good companies
invest their money rather than sit on it.
Right. Yeah, it's a way of, and it also gives the public some control over corporations as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're putting Satanga to sleep. We should talk about something exciting.
Shit! What is all this babble?
Add a bearded man in a unitard to this. Maybe that would make it more exciting. So we've got,
I deserve that.
Yeah.
Look, okay,
right,
so you don't need to play this game is the thing. You can simulate this game at home. What you do is you get a stack of about 100 pennies, and you find a small child, and you give them 10 of the pennies, and say, open the newspaper every day and look at the stock section, and I want you to put some of those pennies on each one of those stocks. And then in about a month, I want you to have enough pennies to buy me a Hot Wheels car. So figure it out. Over that month, that kid might have more fun than playing Wall Street Kid.
I gotta say, like, I do want to say that this game, as not fun as it kind of is, it has the sort of addictive slot machine type quality to it when you start playing.
Hey, it's
sure.
Xerxes, it's funny you mention that because SoFell, makers of Wall Street Kid, also made Casino Kid, which is a gambling game. Blackjack and slots.
Kids really can't do, by the way.
yeah. What's up with
Play
that?
the stock market and gamble.
I couldn't tell you much about Casino Kid. So that seems pretty straightforward. I grew up on Vegas Dreams, so I could tell you more about that. But, on Wall Street Kid, I don't know if it's just because I dislike money, but I just found this game perniciously boring.
If you dislike money, I can just give you like a P.O. box, and you can just send whatever extra you have.
I recognize its presence as a necessary evil.
I see. You have a grudging. Okay. The thing about this game is this is like, it's not all that different from other kinds of like business simulation games. where in this case you're a rich dirtbag, but in other business games like Aerobiz, like you own something and contribute to the world. But the thing is, like, it's basically just watching, like, it's kind of trying to figure out what's gonna take, be a good investment and what's not, and when to get out. But the problem is that unlike the real stock market, where you're going to, if you want to do this, like, you should be doing research and figuring out which is like a solid company that's going to, right. You got to know, and people pay a lot of money for this kind of access to information now, even though the internet exists.
It's algorithmic in this game. Like, it will decide.
It's random
apropos
and
of nothing,
right.
that this
so
stock
for a little while, and they shift value, or they increase and decrease in value pretty rapidly. There's a couple stocks that always seem to be in the tank, but for the most part, there's like, and then the trick is really just like kind of you read the news and see which ones are taking off. You can pay your Martha Stewart insider trader lady to give you some illegal info. But there's no skill involved in it, other than just figuring out what the best way of dividing up your assets are. And
it is an interactive piece of software. You interact with it, but I don't know if you can necessarily play or get good at it.
It's a good way of teaching kids that this is not a good use of your money, but
I defer to my penny model, but like, you're right. I guess
my problem with it is that unlike other sim games, there's not a whole lot else that happens in the game. So you've got your girlfriend Priscilla with her giant 80s hair, and she really, so there's like dating sim elements to it. So you can sync you've got hours in a day, and the hours tick by at an accelerated rate. And you can spend those hours after you're done trading. You can spend your hours at like exercising or going out on dates with your girlfriend, fiance, and later wife. Although I don't really know what happens if you ignore her. Maybe she leaves and you lose the game. I'm not sure. Probably something boring.
Well, there is a mechanic where like you need to be, I don't know if she'll eventually leave, but it's kind of implied that they're monitoring how you're doing in your relationship. Like your family has a vested interest in you basically being
mind his own damn business.
Creepy.
Sure.
Give me your money and rot, you old bag.
And I wonder if the exercise, because like I was wondering, it's like, why the hell there doesn't seem to be a clear mechanical reason why you would ever exercise in this game.
He's so smart. How come he's dead?
Wait, what?
Sorry, it's a Simpsons thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but you gotta invest some of your time into. But the problem is that it really doesn't. It's not a challenge to manage your time well, because there's nothing else to do. There's nothing you can fritter away your time on. Like there's no like Game Boy sitting on the table. It's like, oh, I'm going to play Dr. Mario for 2 hours. And
or there's no like fatigue meter you need to go and fill.
What they should do is really embrace the idea that like this is a game that models off of work, and then give you a way of avoiding work by playing an actually fun game that's built into this game.
Sure.
And then like so if like the weird compromise or the weird challenge of the game would be forcing yourself to play the game instead of the really fun game that's built into it, but will make you lose the main game.
Well, but he's playing like let's say it's a cell phone game, something that's real Skinner box. There's no real way to get good at it, but you're just kind of throwing money at it, and maybe you win sometimes, but then you realize the stock market's the same, and it becomes a cyclical thing, and then you rise up and burn down your building. Right? That's where you're going, right?
I'm not sure how you got to burning down the building, but I'll follow you.
Because it's all a joke. Look, I
mean, so there's just not. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that for a sim game, like what you'd want is to have some kind of. The challenge should be, like time management.
Yeah, like you should be trying to achieve like a sim game, like a good. Think about like Roller Coaster Tycoon. Or like those railroad simulator games. Like there's not even an end goal. It's just like the goal of it is to like be a successful business person. And to sort of perpetually be like, I'm feeding into a thing and the system is running and that gives me more money to do this and you play it forever. This one seems very like specifically late 80s, early 90s. Like your goal is just to get the cash, kid. And you're going to get the cool car and you're going to put the cool, and like, I don't know. It just seems like a really.
To its credit though, it's not like Jones in the Fast Lane where it's like a solitary quest for stuff, which I think I should coin and trademark that. I coined that phrase. I should trademark it unless somebody else has done it first.
But the messaging is similar.
Yeah, I mean, but you do. I mean, okay, but you can have like a happy marriage, and like she doesn't like your girlfriend, later wife, is not like doing anything bad. She just kind of sits around and waits, and as long as you take her out on a picnic every day, she's happy. So like you don't even have to buy her all the expensive stuff she asks for. It doesn't really do anything. So it's like there's no really what they should have done is had like an ostentatiousness meter or something, or like a materialism like thermometer or barometer or something, where it's like I just added a like a bearskin rug and something to my sweet pad in Forest Hills or whatever. There's just no other stuff for you to do.
I guess that would really be my main complaint.
Let's rank this son of a bitch.
I will say, I guess a fundamental problem I have with Wall Street Kid, and this is just me being a bitter, mopey guy, but I don't like games that put me in a situation I can never hope to realistically achieve in real life. So I guess that's a strike against
it. But you could achieve it if you had a super rich relative.
Game.
Oh, that's not happening anytime soon. No, wait. Well, no, maybe I do have... Nah, forget. Well, my life has nothing to do with this. That's just a dark rabbit hole.
But the thing is, Tatanka, that's a strike against every video game that's ever been made.
Point. Well, except maybe Lester the Unlikely, I suppose. I had to... that would be an interesting one to rank. Well, anyway. You've got a point, though. I see what you're saying. But
it's, as an escapist fantasy, it's not a particularly enjoyable one.
You don't get to do anything like crazy materialist, like 80s Reaganite type.
Yeah,
sure.
That's
like, hey, you want to buy this $50,000 car? It's like, great. I don't get any mechanical benefit.
Get nothing. You should at least show you like pulling up to your solitary office in some sweet ride.
That's the point I was sort of leading up to, where this game just feels...
game like this without just showing your character visibly losing his soul in some way, right?
Yeah, sure. This game is too realistic. That's why it makes me... so it brings too many parallels to real life, except for not being rich. But, it's not really an escapist fantasy, and it's not like another simulator where you're like ruler of a nation like Civilization.
This game does have some pretty bitchin' cover art, though.
At least,
it's just like the titular Wall Street Kid in some kind of like Dayglow suit, holding is he holding a bag of money?
He's holding a briefcase that says "Top Secret" and I think a bag of money in the other hand.
Oh, so he's got his stolen insider trading stuff.
Yeah,
and he's got sunglasses, because as we all know, if you're going to shake things up, you better put on some damn Ray-Bans.
All right,
what this game's really missing is an old crone that comes by and says, "You don't get to keep any of it when you're dead."
Like a Stephen King.
The ravages of age.
To rank this game,
I would put it. Below Eight Eyes, below Hanegumi Taisen Columns, which I can't imagine what that. Oh, it's just a columns game. We did talk about this. I think
Joe started.
Let me mention another negative factor: the music.
Bill Lambier's Combat Basketball.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the repetitive music. Yeah.
I'll tell you why it's below Bill Lambert's Combat Basketball. Because you can actually play and get good at Bill Lambert's Combat Basketball.
Well,
it's a
I'll
game.
say this about Wall Street Kid, though. I don't think you have to really. I think once you figure out what you're supposed to do, that's it. So you can get good at it. I mean, it was way too easy, I thought. And I mean, I'll also say like Bill Lambier's Combat Basketball is. Like I said, we've already said this in another episode, that the name alone is worth the price of admission for that.
For sure.
Yeah, I would rather
a better name if you don't know who Bill Lambier is, because Bill Lambier sounds like a guy who owns a Ford dealership.
I would rather be Bill Lambier than a stiff in a suit.
Every stiff in a suit. He is a cool 80s dude who is just rocking the vote left and right. Boom, boom. He's like rocking the Wall Street.
Yeah,
it's like there's the bull and the bear, and then like a freaking surfboard with the boom box on.
And yet, Wall Street Kid is still going lower.
So is he cooler than Bill Lambier? Yes or no?
Well,
okay. Whether or not Wall Street Kid is cooler than Bill Lambier.
So anyway,
Wall Street Kid.
I think
better
below
than
Bill
Jones
Lambier.
Okay.
and above Jones in the Fast Lane, if only
Jones the Fast Lane is
because
the true solitary quest for stuff.
yeah, and you don't feel like there's at least a positive trajectory that is possible in Wall Street Kid. Whereas Jones in the
Kid
Fast
does
Lane
make you
seems
feel like you could possibly.
Yeah.
It's much more nefarious. Than that.
Exactly. Wall Street Kid feels like, it wants you to succeed, even though the way to do that is, long and boring. Jones in the Fast Lane just feels like kicking you in the nuts every, hour on the hour.
And you die alone, right?
No, you never actually die in that game. You just keep getting a relative who tells you that I love you, but you suck, so here's some money.
resurrects you.
So
You're just this lich throughout history.
From your grave.
it is
Work at Bed Bath and Beyond.
Jones in the Fast Lane is a definite circle of hell, while Wall Street Kid is limbo at worst.
It really just is boring. And that's the problem.
And that's why I'd rate it where you guys said between Bill and Beer's Combat Basketball, Jones and Fast Lane. I think that's perfect. I don't think it's going to do much better.
And we're done.
Ranked.
Next and last game for this show is Drill Dozer for the Game Boy Advance. It was nominated by two people at Southeast Paw and also at Meat Dimension TJ. My second favorite. I guess that's a Persona reference, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
He actually said so thank you for clarifying that for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
We're not even going to explore it.
Fair enough. Drill Dozer was released fairly late onto the Game Boy Advance's life. 2006 in America, where the Nintendo DS was already out, I believe.
For 2 years.
This is one of the rare Game Freak joints, right?
Yeah, a Game Freak game that is not Pokemon during the time when Pokemon was still reigning. Well, okay, maybe the middle of last decade.
Has Pokemon ceased to sell millions? I don't think so.
No, I think Pokemon. Pokemon is forever, although I want to say the third generation was when some people were starting to not get on it, get out of it. That's when I got out of it, before the third generation hit. But, it was weird that they actually released a not Pokemon property, and, this one just came out of nowhere.
You get
in the grand
this is
tradition
really
of Tembo the Badass Elephant, which just came out.
yeah.
Oh, I need to play that one.
That's a good game. It's surprisingly kind of not many people are talking about it for some reason. I don't really know why.
Yeah, it's on my wish list. I should get next sale.
Was it like Xbox One only or something?
No, it's on Steam, on PS3 and 360, I believe.
That's the only reason a game could be ignored these days.
Wait, it's in my library. Shit. Anyway, so Drill Dozer.
Drill Dozer.
It's a real labor of love. You can tell when you're looking at it. It's a gorgeous game.
Technologically,
it's really the game pack actually came with a built-in rumble function because you want that rumbler to be rumbling when you're doing the drill. The game is about it's about a green-haired girl. This narrows it down so much.
Pink-haired.
Pink-haired. Sorry, it narrows it down even more.
We're fired.
How many of those are there? And so some kind of prepubescent pink-haired girl who drives a giant this doesn't. I'm trying to narrow this down.
She's apparently part of a bandit gang who
trying to redeem her sick father. You know what? This sounds like so many things. What's going on?
Okay.
Did we mention this is a Japanese game? I think.
How about we make a generalization? Video game stories are kind of dumb.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, just
moving
joking.
on.
The story does not matter to this one. You're piloting a mech that drills everything and is awesome.
Drill arms, and you're kind of like a part of some sort of mercenary team of something or other.
Yeah, you're kind of
that
like
does
Robin
stuff
Hoods,
with
I think,
drill.
sort of.
And you show up, and so the interesting thing about this game is that it's the drill mechanic. Each stage, I think, resets you from the beginning, where you have one gear on your drill, and then you got to find the other two.
Yep.
When you got one gear on your drill, you can only drill so hard. This sounds crazy. You get the second gear, you can drill harder. And you've got to like shift up your drill gear. Like no drill in the world works this way, but this is how this game works. And because in real life, the drill just does what it does. Like you pull the trigger really hard, and it spins really fast. That's what it does. But in this game, you got gears, and so it really actually, honestly, it reminds me of the Hageruman 3, the weird gear icons in the top.
I just
Play
finished playing that game right before I bought this copy, and I was totally thinking about the whole time. I was like,
nice.
I don't know who ripped off which one.
Nothing in common, but
Play Retro Game Challenge if you get the chance, people. It's good.
Yes.
It's awesome. Yeah. So this game, and then you have to find the third drill. So it's kind of like it's got this built-in, Metroid style progression system in each level, and it doesn't really change that much. It just kind of gives you it's basically a way of forcing you to go the right route through the level. It's kind of a simplifying thing. The game is actually surprisingly long, I think. I definitely have not gotten to the end of it.
I haven't gotten too far just yet.
It's a lot of fun, but I always end up forgetting to save or something like that. And
I'm at about 50, 60% of the way through it. And I've not unlocked, there's a bunch of hidden treasures in each one of the levels. I've got maybe 5 of those.
Right. So a lot of the drill is also your only weapon, I believe, right?
Yes. There's not traditional platforming. I jumped on the guy and he died style stuff.
Right. So
really are just kind of limited.
The drill. It's okay. So this is what I love about this game is that it's like a DuckTales style platformer, which by that I mean it's got a weird mechanic that isn't really in any other game before or since, and everything in the game is based around that mechanic in one way or another. So you attack enemies with your drill. This means that you're firing up the drill and you can shift gears, but the problem is the enemies usually come at you from either side. It happens a lot, and so you've got to kind of be juggling these enemies, like you're going back and forth and making sure you're, it's kind of very difficult to explain, at least for dumb people like me. I have no way of explaining how the fighting in this game works. But
so most enemies were susceptible to. They're kind of tiered, I guess. There are a couple that are just mooks that maybe twice a level they'll just crowd. Basically, the level will stop scrolling. You'll be locked in a corridor, and you'll start getting mobbed from both sides.
And the challenge is just kind of like just dividing your attention between the two efficiently, so you actually can get out without getting tagged and hit. You do have a life bar though, so it's not really that hard. And then there are other enemies that will you need to drill them harder to kill them. This all sounds nuts.
And then you wind up with shielded enemies, and so you have to find ways to either maneuver around them or get them to maneuver themselves such that you can drill around the shield.
You can drill through walls. Okay, go ahead.
I do appreciate how much they do with the concept, the way you can block projectiles with your drill. That's fun. That's kind of neat.
I like those gelatinous blocks that you drill into, then pull the drill in reverse and you launch off of them. That's what I
was about to mention. That I love that.
Yeah, that's probably a cool
I'm all about. Much like the owner of Noah's Arcade, I'm way into gelatinous cubes in video games.
Was that a Wayne's World reference?
It is, yes.
I haven't seen that film in ages.
All you 42-year-olds out there, you know what I'm talking about. So is there anything, you can also do some kind of weird drill tunneling too, right?
So there are a couple little corkscrew kind of sections that you'll wind up in, or that's how I describe them anyway. Basically, there are drill paths. So, and your drill's got 2 modes, so it'll do forward and reverse like an actual drill that you would use. And they're color coded, so you'll find these segments where you have to ride these kind of rail tunnel segments by drilling forward, and then we'll lead you into one where you need to be drilling in reverse to propel yourself forward. So you're kind of alternating the left and right. And these drills are mounted to the triggers, by the way. So there's a really good just tactile feel as you're doing this the entire time.
This is a game that I feel like this is one of the few GBA games, and it's ironic since it's one of the later GBA games, where I feel like if you can, playing it on an original GBA is preferable because the trigger buttons are so much more comfortable for non-child-sized hands.
Yeah.
Whereas with the SP, of course, you can actually see the screen, but your hands are really cramped. At least mine are. Unless you have like very tiny, like petite little fingers, then good for you. But for everybody else in the world, your giant meat hooks are, it's going to be really uncomfortable to be hitting those trigger buttons constantly. So I strongly,
Can I say one thing about the game I really appreciate?
Of course you can.
Well, to go on a small tangent real quick, there are a lot of Game Boy Advance platformers, and maybe I've got a bit of a bias because I've played so many terrible licensed ones. But there are so many platformers that have a very limited tile set. Like backgrounds and the floors and ceilings kind of look pretty samey. I'd say this game never has an issue with that. I'd say they do a very good job at actually making the level environments look pretty varied.
It is gorgeous from start to finish.
And that's actually very rare to see in a Game Boy Advance game, to be honest.
The enemies are kind of repetitive, though, right?
They are, but there's
not that it matters, but
well, like within a level, especially when you're like being like crowded by 20 or 30 of these kind of clown-looking robots in a row, and you're like, "Ooh, they could have mixed this up a little bit, maybe."
Kind of reminds me of like the Astro Boy Tiny Toons GBA games by Treasure, where they have just like waves of like identical enemies that will just come at you from all sides.
Sure, but like I feel like that's you could make the same critique of something like Contra Hardcore, for instance.
Yeah,
like it's just true. They're just mooks. Like I don't think that's a
you're not supposed to be paying a ton of attention to them. Like the variety is in the levels, which are sort of maze-like. The boss fights are pretty cool. There's like mini bosses. I mean, the game really just has everything. If this game came out on the Super Nintendo, people would still be talking about it as like one of the top 16-bit platformers.
It does look like a Super Nintendo game. Sounds like it too. I mean, the GBA certainly not the strongest in terms of sound procession, but the tunes are just so energetic, and none of it feels tinny. And
it also does a really good job with its like. It's hard. It's weird to talk about a platformer having a user interface. It doesn't, but the way it graphically represents the speed and power of the drill. It does something that in my a game should almost never do, but it does it very well, which is obscure the entire screen with like a drill meter that just shows up. But it has to be big because if you're playing it on a GBA, the screen is really small. It's about the size of 2 postage stamps. And I mean, they're really tiny. So you have to have a huge thing. So they put kind of semi-transparent or...
Yeah, it's transparent. It's kind of transposed over the top. I can see why that would be really useful. Like I'm holding my SP right now, and it's about like an index figure wide on the diagonal. So they needed to come up with something. And
they did a good job with it. And they came up with a good graphical representation of the thing because you have to time to shift up the gears on your drill, which is... Go to Home Depot, kids, and test a drill because I guarantee you they do not work this way. But
you can fiddle with torque on it, but usually not live. Is the thing. Yeah.
But then again, you're not like I got to drill something. Let me build a giant robot suit that will work.
Sure.
But it's important to have that meter on there, the power meter, because in order to shift up gears on your drill, you have to. It's just like driving a car, kind of, where you got to get the drill motor running fast enough that you can shift the key. Oh man, this is weird. This is so strange. Like, how did they come up with this? But thank God they did, because it's great.
Well, late in the game, you actually get an air propeller that you attach to the end of your drill, so you use the drill power to fly and
cool.
pierce.
And
through
they also have
pierce through the heavens like a certain anime. Wink. But I don't know how this game got made, but it makes me think Game Freak should have done a lot more besides Pokemon, because
yeah, but I mean, this is a game that got made because they really wanted to make it, and it's
that's a good point.
Game Freak kind of fell in the same hole Natsumi did, where they found one thing that sold and they got kind of fell in a hole.
I mean,
they got Harvest Moon.
To be fair, like if Nintendo or some similarly sized company says, "Hey, guess what? You can sell these things and make a gajillion dollars. Please do one every 3 years."
Well, I want to downplay
to that.
Yeah. I mean, true. I do like Pokemon. Don't get me wrong, but
this kind of is like, it reads to me like it's sort of them making up for the fact that they've been making kind of the same Pokemon game with minor changes for decades.
Sure.
It's like, God, we had good ideas.
Well, precisely a decade to this point by when the game was
as
released.
good a platformer as Pokemon was an RPG.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
It was right at the end of the GBA's life, so like the stakes were incredibly low. Like this was about the same time that like Ninja 5.0 came out too.
Right, I was thinking that exactly.
I think that was a couple of years earlier.
It's even better than
Ninja
Ninja 5.0. But it's
was this
Ninja
before or
5.0
after the DS?
This was like 2 years after the DS. The DS came out in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. Like it came out earlier than I think people remember it.
That was 2005.
Just nobody played it because the first version was so huge, butt ugly, and nasty. It's like, hey, would you like to hold like a giant salami?
Wow, you were right. It was the end of 2004. Shoot.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't have anything else to say about it because I feel like you should just play this game.
Yeah.
Don't listen to us talk about it. Like,
if I want to say something else about Game Freak, it does bring to mind one of their prior platformers, Pulseman on the Genesis, if anyone's played that. And I can see some similarities in like how colorful those games are, how they center mostly around a certain gimmick and use it really, really well. Except I think Drill Dozer uses the drill machine even better than Pulseman voiping around everywhere on lines and whatnot.
voiping?
I don't know where I got that word from. I want to say
I know where you got the word from. I don't know why you use the word. Well, it is like a Scrooge McDuck like Kane thing where that's what the game is, and it never really happened again. I mean, at least DuckTales got a sequel and a Game Boy game and stuff like that.
Hey, you know what other game is kind of mechanically similar to it? If we can think about ranking it, Bionic Commando.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even like Bionic Commando, like there are other games that had grappling hooks after that.
Ninja 5.0, for example.
I can cite a game that has a pogo stick-like mechanic right now, if you'd like, later than Drill Dozer. It's called Shovel Knight.
Yes,
love Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight
Excellent,
is the ultimate, like the victory of hindsight.
Game of the year 2014, if you ask me.
Definitely,
but that was kind of a low year for games.
Well, I would like nobody's nominated Shovel Knight, but I would say like this is a Shovel Knight caliber game. If you like Shovel Knight, you have to play Drill Dozer.
Absolutely.
It's a lot easier than Shovel Knight. Although I bet it gets kind of hard as it goes on.
Drill Dozer just seems a lot more like, okay, so you've gotten good at this skill, now try doing it on top of this skill.
Yeah, add this to it.
Yeah, it's
a lot more iterative.
Controls.
Yeah, the difficulty actually seems pretty in check here. Fair progression, but never too overwhelming. It seems like something anyone can play. I don't know if I'd call it easy outright, but
what's great, I mean, it's got the hallmarks of a great game. One of which is that it's not super difficult. You can pick it up and play it and figure it out really easily. It doesn't have to spend a lot of time telling you how it works, although there is some of that. It's a one-of-a-kind game, and I'm sad that it is because I really wish I mean, there should be a Drill Dozer 2 out there by now. Like the indie game movement is designed around games like this. This is an indie game style ethos of game design.
It feels like that.
Take something really great and just do the hell out of it.
Yeah, Drill Dozer was released on the edge of a time when bigger game companies could actually afford to take risks and do crazier stuff like this. And
well, yeah, I mean, but Game Freak, pretty much put it out on their own, right?
Yeah. Well, you think about the broader context it came out in. This was about a year before stuff like Braid and all these like indie platformers started hitting like consoles, and Steam started blowing up with independently developed like 2D platformers. Like
Yeah, go
it seems like an interesting segue into those style of games, but came from Game Freak and was released on a Nintendo handheld. Like it's very strange evolution of like where things went after it.
It's very anomalous, and I'm surprised we got it in the first place, and disappointed that we don't have a sequel. But I can sort of
You've got like Shantae is just sort of hung on somehow.
Yeah,
that's
Even
amazing.
though when they were new, nobody really played the games. This game just didn't get that treatment because I feel like it came out so late in the GBA's life cycle because one or two guys were the main people responsible, and they're just kind of working on it in between Pokemon business. And it's like there's a labor of love. And I think that brings us full circle. Let's rank this.
I'm ranking it high on the basis that Jill is an assist trophy in Smash Brothers, and if it's in Smash Brothers, it's got to be good.
I'd say it'd have to be pretty close to Wario Land 4 or so.
It really is.
Talking
And
about GBA games
not
of
just
high
because it's
quality.
a GBA game, but yeah, like it is also its place on the system, right, on its platform is really high too. Just in terms of original GBA games, which Wario 4 doesn't even qualify because it's based on another series that predates the GBA. But there are so few of these, so few like original GBA games that are this good.
that stand out. That endure, that have stood the test of time. It passes my
the
Space
ownership
Harrier
of the
index.
GBA. Yeah. Oh, sure.
It's a modern classic.
I mean, if you put it in the Wario 4 range, you're putting it above such paragons of game history as pillars of game history, I should say, as Galaga and Kix.
Yeah.
You want me to be totally radical? I'm going to put it above Toe Jam and Earl.
I'm 4 above Kix and maybe not much higher than that. It's really good. It's really good, and I'd be comfortable if it went higher. But I'd start to
I do
question.
put it in the Alien Soldier territory.
At
Oh,
least,
definitely.
Yeah,
I put it above Alien Soldier just because it's so much more accessible.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point. I'm not going to disagree with that.
I don't know about putting it above Kix because Kix is Kix, and it is like a very elemental kind of game. But then again, like Wario Land 4 is not that kind of game. It's very much a iteration on a formula, but it's really high up there, and it can't be wrong.
Well, me placing it above Toe Jam and Earl may have been a little premature.
I would put it above Wario Land 4 on the logic that, well, yeah.
It's a new idea, is what you're suggesting.
It's a new cool idea. It does basically. Kix is a completely new idea for its time, but it's also there's almost nowhere else to go with Kix.
I don't know if you guys have played Fortix on. It's available on Steam, but you want to see where Kix has gone, you can see that. And
I mean, it's not like I never want to count Kix out. Like, there's surely something that people can do besides sticking like nudie girls behind it. But even if that's as far as it went, it's still like a really ingenious game design.
Yeah.
And that's why, in a way that,
especially the arcade version, like it just looks so cool.
I can't figure out why Kix is below Galaga. But it must be right. So it's correct. I think that was a coin toss one, actually. So it's extra correct because nothing is more correct than random chance.
Absolutely.
So the thing I got to say about Kix is that, like, you can't coming up with an idea like Kix, especially when they came up with that idea.
Sure.
Is really impressive. That is like thinking way outside the normal limits of game design, whereas Galaga is, let's do this but better.
Sure.
And
like Kix is so abstract. Like it's such a strange concept. Whereas Galaga is like, what if the aliens moved different?
Where Drill Dozer, I think, is in the same territory, but it's not like Kix in that it's like a completely new idea. It's like, no, let's do a platformer with some maze type levels, and this is the mechanic we came up with. But it's so, on another level, it's so hard to say, let's do a platformer, but let's make it different than anything that's ever happened before, because there are so many platformers.
Bobinator, what you got?
What I was going to say is I'd feel they were actually pretty close to Wario Land 4. They're both actually pretty similar when you look at them. And they're both great, which is why I'd rank them so closely.
Yeah, I want to put it above Galaga just because Galaga is not as clever an idea. It's more like somebody who's really good at seeing what's good about other games And with Drill Dozer, it's kind of some of that because it's really good about seeing what's great about platformers, but it's coming up with a new platforming mechanic that has not really been done since.
You could also just say, like, in its context, like, as a swan song for the GBA, like, I don't know if it was necessarily the last, like, original title for the console necessarily, but it's got to be damn near close. And
Okay,
it's
all right,
so
wait.
good.
So I'll tell you this. All right. I'm putting it below Kicks, above Alien Soldier for the reasons I just stated.
If we were going to place it so close to Wario Land 4, I'm all for splitting the difference and putting it between Galaga and Kicks, actually. I love
okay
Kicks, but
I'm all right with Xerxes' assumption, and I'm actually might be okay leaving it there, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The music is good, but it is a little repetitive, especially after you hit that third gear. It's the same track basically every time.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's not terrible, but it does grate a little bit. You will get tired of it.
Galaga, the music is different every time.
Absolutely. Therefore, I mean, whatever. Like, if we're going to go by the soundtrack metric, Alien Soldier is better than, like, almost every game on this list.
Well, we can't.
You can't argue with Kazuo.
We got to look at these things as
a whole.
As a whole. But yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's not like everything about the game is flawless.
Yeah,
it's more that you see so few great ideas like this in platformers. And that's why I want to put it out. It is kind of like Wario 4 in that way, except Wario 4 is really just a stand-in for the whole Wario series right now. Okay, all right, we got to do this. So who's for below Galaga?
At least, I think.
I'm for putting it below Galaga.
Yeah.
I will agree with that.
Okay, so we all agree on that. Who's for putting it below Kicks? I am.
I'm for putting it above Kicks. I just don't have the affection for Kicks. I think it's dope. I think it looks great. I just don't have the affection for it.
I think it is dope. I think that other games might be whack.
Yeah.
I think that
I think Kicks is a stupid good game, dog.
I do too, even if all the Gals Panics have sort of ruined its
hey, if a game
reputation.
is so solid that the only way you can improve on it is nudity, you've really struck gold.
Well,
Grand Theft Auto.
You might have a point there, but I mean, Kicks is.
Does it have boobs?
Lord.
No.
All right. I want to hear from Bob first what he thinks, because I'm kind of whinging on this one.
Well, I've already made my vote.
You mean above Kicks?
Yeah.
Because that's 2, I think.
Xerxes, I'm going to outmode you in this one. I'm just going to put it above Kicks because it just looks so damn good. I mean, I'm going to take the shallow option here. Kicks are just mostly staring at, basic geometry concepts for the entirety of the game, but Drill Dozer just looks so lively, so vibrant.
Right. I know when I didn't think I was wrong, but here we are, you know?
Kicks is a classic, but Drill Dozer is a modern classic, and I think it's something that more people can get into. It
is a game that if this list is to have any worthwhile, useful purpose in life other than just letting you know what the truth is, I guess it would be like to encourage people to play games that haven't been played enough. And Drill Dozer is definitely one of those games. Kicks is probably not one of those games, because I know you guys out there, the first game you downloaded from me was Gal's Panic. That's all for this episode of Hardcore Gaming 101's Top Games Podcast. Special thanks goes out to Uzi, Southeast Paw, Meat Dimension TJ, Crush Gals, Eric Twice, Jay Griva, and Puplos Z. Puplos Z sounds like a drug you don't want to take.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I don't want to catch it.
Puplos Z.
Stop saying Puplos.
God damn it.
I just like that Puplos wasn't enough. Like there was already a Puplos. So Puplos _ Z. And thanks to those of you we didn't get to yet, although we're trying to get to all of you. You know who you are. And we'll be getting to you soon. Thanks as well to my lovely co-hosts, Satanga Bobinator and can I just call you Jeff?
Yeah, man. Just call me Jeff.
Okay, and Jeff.
And thanks for having me on.
And Jeff's also our editor. He's going to be next up on that. So thank you also.
I can't
Jeff.
thank you enough for that. It's really been a boon for all of us.
It's been cool.
Thank you.
I only found this show, to be perfectly honest, about 4 or 5 months ago. I'd listened to every episode.
Like, why didn't we alienate you yet? Like, didn't you hear all the horrible things I said about all those?
If you missed the Obidus episode, then you're golden.
I have not missed any episode. I'm more active on the Giant Bomb website, where I'm just known by my government name. I'm on Twitter at Electric Viking. I don't do much anything, but
He lives under like an overpass, and this is just what he does. He has a little cup, and if you give him some money, he'll talk about games.
Yeah.
And thank you as well to our theme song composer Muteki, and of course the support and feedback of listeners like you. You can support this podcast by making a small monthly donation at patreon.com/HG101, where you should be getting raw, unedited versions of this podcast if I ever get around to uploading the other ones. I promise to do that. You definitely want to hear it. You won't believe what you're missing, guys. And you can also help us out by following at HG_101 and at GC9X on Twitter. But most importantly, help us claw our way into the zeitgeist by getting on iTunes, subscribing to HG101, and giving us a 5-star review. Do it for something pro wrestling. Until next time, keep keeping it real. So I guess I got to say the words rictus grin of avarice here because I forgot to. I just like that. I just like how that sounds. It scans, right? You're a lit major, right? It scans.
It does, but
Rictus grin of avarice.
I'm recording right now, so...
Wallowing in the muck of avarice. That is a wrestling reference. Let's see who gets it.
No, that one's even beyond me, dude.
Great. Moving on.
Do I have to start this recording over?
I can feel myself growing older and balder as we're doing this.